Hey, welcome back, guys. This is Justin Stewart, one half of the Rossetti and Stewart Podcast. Figured I'd do a little quick solo episode today. Today I want to talk about the Steelers and Pirates. I do want to remind everyone that you can find our show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts from. Just search the Rossetti and Stewart Podcast. So I don't really want to waste too much time with this, but I do want to start out with the Pirates, and the reason I decided to hop on and do a solo podcast today is because I was on Twitter, and this Tim Williams guy, I know you shouldn't overreact to what people post on Twitter, and it's not really I don't know what the word is. It's not really the place to really overreact, as people say a bunch of wild stuff on there, but I'm sorry. When you call Pirates fans, Pittsburgh Pirate fans, spoiled and entitled, and you loop them or lump them in the same group as Steelers and Penguins fans, sorry, you crossed the line there. That's just absolutely moronic. I'm sorry. Listen, you can be, as a fan, you have a right to feel however you want to feel. I'm not going to take that away from you. That goes for any sport, any team. If you believe that the Pirates are heading in the right direction with this current management group and the front office, more power to you. If you don't feel like that's the case, more power to you. That's your right as a fan. Like, I don't understand. How are you going to tell someone how to fan? Especially if a franchise hasn't been good in 30 years. I mean, this is a franchise that's had 4 winning seasons since 1992, and you're going to call us spoiled and entitled? Like, what are we talking about here? This team has lost 100 games back-to-back years. 2020, they were on pace to lose well over 100 games. 2019, they lost 90-plus games. I mean, come on. Just stuff like that annoys me. How are you going to call Pirates fans spoiled and entitled? Do you have any idea the suffering that fans have had to endure? And the thing that kills me about this is, you have to have faith in the farm system, and these guys are going to help out the next wave of prospects, so they're going to get Pirates baseball back to winning baseball again. Listen, I'm not denying they have good prospects. Henry Davis, Nick Gonzalez, Tamar Johnson, that's going to be a long ways away, but Andy Rodriguez, I get it, they have prospects, but this is where I draw the line. The Pirates, I know they signed Vince Velasquez, and they just signed Austin Hedges, and they signed Carlos Santana. I'll give them credit. They're signing players, but you can sign more. You can add a couple more arms to the starting rotation. You can add an extra arm or two in the bullpen. You can add a couple more bats on your lineup. Like, how are you going to tell a Pirates fan... No, forget that. How are you going to lump a Pirates fan in the same group as Steelers and Penguins fans? Listen, if you want to call Steelers fans and Penguins fans spoiled and entitled, you have more ground to stand on with that argument. But if you're telling a Pittsburgh Pirates fan that same thing, I'm sorry, you lose me there. You absolutely lose me there. The Pirates, when they were good, I say this every time on the podcast when we talk about the Pirates, from 2013 to 2015, 94 games, 88 games, 98 games. The fans showed up when they were winning. You can't call this a bandwagon fan base. The Pirates in 2001, when they opened a new stadium, broke attendance records. They were literally having large crowds all throughout the 2001 season. And they were terrible that year too. Literally, fans will show up to the ballpark. I know we have the bobblehead nights and the all promotions. I understand that's why primarily nowadays fans go, but fans are willing to go. And the Pirates have good fans. I don't really see a lot of toxic... Now, I can't even talk right now because I'm so frustrated. I don't see a lot of toxic Pirates fans on Twitter. Not as much as Steelers and Penguins. Like, they are far and few compared to those two other teams. So I don't want to hear about how Pirates fans are X, Y, and Z. They're ungrateful. Ungrateful for what? What is this management? What is this owner done to warrant getting the benefit of the doubt? I'll wait patiently. It's, I don't understand. Do people think before they post? Clearly not. I mean, come on, dude. This is a franchise that's had past 30 years, 26 losing seasons. And I'll do one better. They haven't won a playoff series since they won the World Series in 1979 before. I don't even count the wild card teams. I know they made the playoffs technically, but they didn't advance except the first year. They lost the first game in 2014 and 2015. So they really didn't advance to the postseason. So you're talking about winning the actual series, 1979. So Pirates fans have had to endure a lot. You guys, if you've listened to the podcast since day one, you know how I feel about Bob Nutting. You know how I feel about Ben Cherington. Ben Cherington. So for people singing his praises early on, some of the trades he's made, the Josh Bell one in particular, like those are the kind of trades, man. If you're trying to rebuild your team, you can't miss on those. And Josh Bell, while I don't think he's a superstar player, he's a very good player, and he would still be good at first base. I think Josh Bell is one of those guys that could play well and effective well into his 30s, and you let him walk. And I understand he was a Boris and understand term anyway, but you got to make an effort. And this is what it goes back to. Brian Reynolds is PO'd right now. He's not very happy. And you've done everything in your power to make him mad. I mean, looking at the salaries, Carlos Santana in 2023 will be making roughly the same amount of money that Brian Reynolds is. Brian Reynolds in 2021 was argued to be a top 25 player in all of baseball. Now, he took a step back this year as far as batting average and RBIs go, but he had more home runs this year, so the power's not an issue. And, you have no protection around him. Guys that can consistently drive in runs, maybe outside of O'Neal Cruz, and Jack Sawinski. So, the Pirates, your best player. I understand he's 27. I understand he's almost 30, and, you don't want to give guys 12-year contracts. I'm well aware of that. But seeing what Brandon Nimmo got for the Mets, 8 years, about $160. Brian Reynolds can definitely get that in the open market if he wanted to. Even if he has 3 more strong years or whatever it is until they get rid of him, because I don't think he's staying long term anymore. I thought there was an iota of a chance, but now I think it's none. I think he warrants 8 years, 160. I think he can get $200 million, depending on the type of years he has moving forward. So you got, at some point, you have to start signing guys and saying, you know what, put your foot down and say, you know what, these guys, they're here to stay long term, and they're going to be part of this next wave that's going to help us get out of the abyss. Seriously. I don't really like making these kinds of podcasts or reactions, whatever you want to call them, over some guy I've never even heard of on Twitter talk about how Pittsburgh's a miserable city. Like, come on, dude. You start making claims like that, I'm pretty sure you have no idea how Pittsburgh feels about X, Y, and Z, especially the Pirates. Some of these Pirates apologists need to get a clue. That's the whole other thing. Like, some of these guys, listen. I'm not going to tell you how to fan. I know it sounds like I'm telling you how to fan right now, but if you think that they are headed in the right direction, I respect you for thinking that, but I just completely disagree. I've seen this movie 1,000 times. We've seen this movie for the past 30 years. We'll be good in 3 years with our prospects. And then they rely on these prospects to help them break through this cycle of losing. And these guys never pan out consistently. You look at the top 10 prospects right now. I don't have the list right off the top of my head. How many of those guys do you think will actually pan out and be really good players? Maybe 4, 5 out of 10? And that's being nice. It might be less. Honestly, do you think any of those guys in the top 10, do you think any of those guys will be all-star players? Really? There's just a lot of uncertainty with baseball. This isn't basketball. This isn't football. This isn't even hockey, where a guy can just come in day one and make an immediate impact on your club. These are guys that, whatever, life happens, circumstances happen, a bunch of curveballs, no pun intended, are thrown your way. It's just frustrating. It's like you can't. There's always one side or the other. You can't criticize a team, or you can't kiss its behind. Like you can't have middle ground and recognize when they do good, even though it seems very not often. It doesn't seem very often that happens. But listen, I'm the kind of guy, I'll give you credit for making moves. And I'll give them credit for signing Carlos Santana. I'll give them credit for signing Vince Velasquez. I'll give them credit for signing Austin Hedges. But they could do a whole lot more. Especially with guys on your roster that are a bunch of rookies or a bunch of guys that have just got caught up or guys that are on cheap contracts. You can spend money. It's not against the law. You have money. And the way baseball is set up, and like the way other sports are set up with revenue and merchandise and, concessions, you make money regardless. You make money. I don't want to hear the story about how the Pirates are broke or they can't afford to spend a little money in the offseason. They can. I'm just so sick of it. You're going to tell me as a fan how to feel. How I have no right to feel entitled because they've done the exact opposite in the past 30 years of trying to win baseball games. I mean, isn't the goal to win? And you're tanking. And you're tanking so bad that your best player wants out. Tell me how much sense that makes. You should be getting better. This is, 2020? The first year Charrington came in? Okay, I'll give you a pass. I'll even give you a pass about 2021. But 2022 was supposed to be the year they made some progress. I'm not saying win 85 games, but maybe 70 games. And this year, 2023, was supposed to be the year. Oh, maybe we could be 500, maybe. Even maybe challenge for a last wild card spot. No. Shoot, I don't even know if this team's going to win 70 games next year. And we'll be in year 5 already? Come on. And this is the whole issue with baseball, too. The Royals have not recovered since 2015. They haven't. It is just so... There's... Small market teams are at such a disadvantage. There needs to be something done about that. And I know I just contradicted myself by saying how they can spend money. I know I just did that. But the point remains, both of those things can be true. They could spend more money. And no one's asking them to sign Aaron Judge or Mookie Betts or Cody Belt. No one's asking them to make those kind of moves. Just, there's good players out there. Just add to the team. Get some veterans in here, long term, maybe 2-3 years, multi-year deals. Enough of this 1 year stuff. When you're going to trade them in mid-season, and get more prospects for guys that might not even help you 5 years from now. Like seriously, I'm just so sick of it. Don't ever tell me I am a toxic fan, and I'm a fair weather fan, or I'm spoiled as a Pirates fan. Get out of here, bro. That's enough Pirates ranting for the day for me. Just had to get that off my chest. I call out nonsense when I see nonsense, and that was absolute nonsense. Calling a Pirates fan toxic and spoiled is one of the dumbest things you could ever say on Twitter. End of story. Moving on to the Steelers real quick. Tomorrow, they will be starting Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback, and there's really no surprise there. Kenny Pickett suffered a second concussion last week against the Ravens. I think it's a smart move to keep him out. I did see some people, some media guys, prominent media figures, talk about shutting Kenny down for the rest of the year. And, I feel like as long as he's good to go next weekend against the Raiders on Christmas Eve, I think you have to throw him out there. He needs to continue to, get reps, get a feel for the game, and continue to get better. I don't like shutting him down, not at all. If he's not healthy for some reason, that's one thing. But I think you got to play the rookie, man. You got to play him. And I would shut down. Conversely, I would shut down T.J. Watt. It's clear he's not healthy, and I appreciate his efforts trying to fight with his team and try to win some games, but. Dude, just sit out. There's 3 games left. This team's probably not making the playoffs either. So just why waste your time? I know it's the competitive nature. Guys are trying to win. Like that's what you're doing that's what you do for a job. It's what you do for a living. But I mean, even Cam Hayward too, and Minka Fitzpatrick, I would really limit their snaps, just for health and safety purposes, going forward in the next year, so they come back fresh and ready to go. I guess that's all I could say. But listen, I've already said what I need to say about the Steelers. There's a whole fiasco about why Mason Rudolph isn't starting and why is Mitch starting X, Y, and Z. I get it. Mitch Trubisky, I mean, if you look at the numbers last week, a very high completion percentage, made some good throws, but you can't be throwing 3 picks in your red zone. That's just unacceptable. And, it is what it is. Mitch Trubisky, I've never understood this argument either. I've heard people mention this on Twitter too about how, oh well, he'll take a step forward in his progression and growth as an NFL quarterback. How does that work exactly? Oh, because he sat behind Josh Allen. You don't get better sitting on the bench. That's not how it works. You can learn things, but at the end of the day, you have to go out there and perform. And we know who Mitchell Trubisky is at this point. He's a low-end starter on a team like the Steelers who has a quarterback waiting in wings, waiting behind him. And that's exactly what happened. And as long as guys like him and Baker Mayfield, they're in the league, those kind of guys, they're not going to be everyday starters unless proven otherwise. I know Baker had a good game last week against the Raiders. It was very clutch in the fourth quarter, but listen, they're low-end starters on a non-contender, which both those two guys are. And if they're on a good team, they're probably a backup, and there's nothing wrong with that. Both of them have had long careers, compared to the average span of an NFL career. I mean, they've pretty much passed it. So I'm not really in the hoopla over the whole Mason Rudolph, Mitch Trubisky, you should start thing. Either way, we know what we have with Mason Rudolph too. It's not like he's going to go out there and throw for 6 touchdowns against the Panthers, who have been playing really a lot better football, especially with Sam Darnold at quarterback. J.C. Horns picked it up as and the whole defense, it's kind of young. They've gotten better too. So listen, it's not going to be an easy game for the Steelers to win. I do expect them to win, but it's going to be one of those maybe sloppy 19-16 kind of score. That's just how the Steelers play football. Yeah, it is what it is. It's not my favorite brand of football, but that's the Steelers' motto. Get it out and find a way to win at the end of the day. So I expect tomorrow to be no different. We'll see how tomorrow goes, but Mitch is one of those guys who'll make a couple really nice plays, and then he'll make that one play where you just think to yourself, WTF, man. WTF. But that's pretty much all I had to do. This wasn't intended to be a very long podcast, but I just figured I'd hop on when you see lunacy on Twitter and someone making ridiculous claims. I mean, absolutely ridiculous claims. And just Twitter. Twitter is quite the place to be if you want to look at a lot of people's hot takes or lack thereof, I guess, if you want to put it that way. So, all in all, pretty ridiculous takes by my man Tim Williams. And listen, if he somehow, very unlikely he hears this, but if he somehow hears this, I would love to set up a conversation and even invite him on the podcast and just understand his rationale behind what he said today. I just really don't understand how Pirates fans can be toxic and spoiled and entitled. Now, Steelers and Penguins fans, I got you there, man, but come on. I support this team even though they're trash. I think this year I went to a lot of games this year. So, I like to see good baseball. The city has shown when a good product is on the field, they will come. And regardless of how people feel about Bob Nutty, the owner, and the rest of the guys in the front office, the reality is if the Pirates are good again, if they are somehow good again in the future, people will show up, and PNC Park will be a premier place to go in the summertime. So I just wanted to throw that out there for you guys. But that's all I have today on this little short podcast. I'm trying to figure some things out since the space where we've been recording recently has, I guess, closed for the rest of the semester. So, and Tony's officially graduated college, so shout out to Tony Rossetti for graduating college too. Once we get all that figured out, we should be back to doing podcast here. So I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know when we'll be having another podcast after this one. I might hop on and do some recaps, Steelers recaps, things of that nature. Might do some at-home stuff with Tony too, but we've been talking to a guy we might interview, so we might have that going as well. So we'll just see how it all plays out. I do want to have more guests in the future. There's, we've reached out to some guys, they've gotten back, and, others, it's still a process. We're working out the details there. So, all in all, just wrapping up, for this episode, just a pretty solid first year for the podcast, I'd say. Certainly, I think I should get better. I definitely need to get better as far as, research, that kind of stuff. So I actually come in, more prepared, not kind of nervous and, all that stuff. So, hats off to this year. I will guarantee you guys, I'll be cutting up a little blooper reel here before Christmas, maybe 2 of them. One before or around Christmas, and one around New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, that kind of thing. So, looking forward to releasing that. We have a lot of unedited footage, that kind of stuff. So I'll be throwing that in there as well. So, but I just wanted to keep you guys updated on where our podcast is going from here on out. So, we're still going strong here, man. Still going strong. Just figuring everything out, and school's a grind. So I would love to post weekly episodes, but sometimes it's just not in the cards, and trying to get better at that too. So we'll just see how it all pans out here as the weeks and days and months come upon us. So I appreciate everyone for tuning into our podcast for a lot of 2022. Stay safe out there. Happy holidays. We'll see you soon, hopefully. And you can find our show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Pretty much tune in wherever you get your podcast. Just search the Rossetti and Stewart Podcast. For Justin Stewart, I am Justin Stewart, riding solo here. Talk to you guys soon.